Hey everyone, Rob Brinded here. This is episode number 3 of the Masterless podcast. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your comments and feedback as well. Thank you so much. Today we're going to be talking about hamster wheels, the hamster wheels concept. I'm super excited to be talking about this one because it's something I've been thinking about now for a few years, and it's right now it's getting my clients incredible results, but more selfishly, it's given me the most incredible results I never thought were possible for myself. So changing myself and changing me, which is the reason why I got into all of this work in the first place over 25 years ago, was to try and resolve all my own problems, all my pain, all the negative self-talk, insecurities, the suffering, the struggle, the trying to get better but never feeling enough, not good enough, all of that stuff that was going on that was making me unhappy and never satisfied. That was my fuel to try and find the solutions for myself. And in doing so, because I was already in this area of work, like working with elite athletes, I came away from working on the physical side and moved more, as I talk about in my book, Decentralized Mind, that rabbit hole into how our emotions affect us, trying to understand the mind. And the more I've looked at that, the more I've realized that pretty much everything starts in the mind. The mind is the most important thing for enjoying our lives and being healthy and vibrant. So I wanted to talk about how hamster wheels, why I came up with the hamster wheels, or why I found them. Really, it was because for maybe for 15 years now, what I do is whenever I can't find a solution or I can't get results with someone, or I have a client that comes back again with the same thing, it sits in my mind and spins around a bit like hamster wheel. It's in the back of my mind always. Why couldn't I get results? And so I keep those in a folder, and I'm constantly looking for patterns of behavior in others that could help me find a solution for them. So I had a handful of these clients that I always kept down. I was like, why can't I get like things to stick, especially with things like addictions, or why do certain people get cancer? Why do some people get neurological disorders? Is there an actual pattern to that? Is there a pattern that you can find the answer to, and then, or is it just all by coincidence? Is it just coincidence? But the more I've looked, the more I've seen that there's certain patterns to people's behaviors that end up that they get an illness, or that they self-sabotage in addictions, or self-sabotage in high performance in competition. So I had this bunch of people that I kept in my head that I always went back to. One, because I have a tendency to be very perfectionist and never think I'm good enough. So I'm always remembering the ones that I was not good enough to do, right? That's the kind of negative side of it. And there's always a positive and negative. So the positive was it's driven me to be a bit of a perfectionist, which has made me really strive to find the answers. On the negative side, that was, I was beating myself up. And even when I was working with elite athletes, I would never think I was good enough. And then I would see other people who were extremely average, bordering on like not very good at all, but had so much confidence, and it just couldn't how that they could, over perceive themselves. But that's okay. So I had this drive, as I said, to find out. And over the years, I've honed in on particular things, keeping my eyes open, and the patterns have formed and formed. And what happened a few years ago was I started to get into Krishnamurti. I started to, look, why is it these particular things? So all of these clients came together. And so if I think about it now, I'm kind of thinking about it for the first time. It was really, I came to a point where I was like, yeah, there's a behavior, there are these automated software programs that are running people, and they can't change them, but I can see them, and I can starting to see them in myself. And then I saw this book on a shelf, and I've had this happen like 2 times in my life where I see a book and I get drawn to it. And it was Krishnamurti, Freedom from the Mind. And I picked it up and I was like, yeah, this is it. And I read his work and listened to one of I think it was Freedom from the Mind, even on audio. I listened to it again and again. So I reread the book or listened to it like 10 times, and I immediately started going very deep into observing my own behavior. So Krishnamurti, the main thing is that you can only find freedom yourself. You can't follow anyone else's plan. You have to be your own authority. And in observing yourself and understanding, that frees you. That dissolves the behaviors that are conditioned in our minds. So we have our mind, our self, there's just all of humanity's conditioning into it. So his fundamental idea is that if you want to change the world, then you change yourself, because we have everything within us. And that's the only way. You can't change anyone else. And the only way to change yourself is through observation, non-doing. Wu Wei, the Taoists call that Wu Wei. And we're inundated with videos and self-help books on discipline, and you've got to do this, and you say these words to yourself to manifest, and you've got to increase your vibrant energy and to attract like a magnet, law of attraction, all this stuff. And what we want to be looking at is first principles. I'm kind of always trying to stick to first principles, and everything in a particular area should all come down to being the same thing. Like, let's say the spiritual stuff or the self-help gurus and stuff, there should be first principles to that to change. So if someone's saying, oh, you've got to imagine that your energy levels are really high to gain, what I came to understand that, yeah, that's kind of, you're hooking people on their behavior because they want to gain. So I started to really watch my behavior and start to see patterns in my behavior before I go into what other people are doing. Don't want to get distracted by that. So I was observing myself all the time and starting to see patterns and getting to know. At first, it was difficult. It was one of the hardest things in the world. As Krishnamurti says, the highest form of intelligence is being able to observe your behavior without commenting on it. And so I remember I was in one session, I was listening to a client, and when I think one of my key skills is listening. You have to be able to listen like really closely to what they're saying and what they're saying behind that and what they're not wanting to say. And there is just a huge field there. So I'm listening to this one particular client, and I pulled up my whiteboard, which is over on my left right now. And I was listening to the words, and I just started plotting them on the whiteboard on one side and the other, because they'd say, yeah, I want to gain this. I want to get more clients, or I want to get more money, more freedom. I want to get more intimacy. Like, I was putting down words on that side. And then on the other side, it was the opposite. Like, yeah, I don't want to lose. I feel lost. I'm feeling disappointed because I didn't get that, or I haven't got enough of that. So I'm putting them on the board. And then I went, well, why don't I just draw a circle in between them? Because it's kind of the opposite. So it reminded me of like the yin yang symbol. So it turned out that on the right is the yang, so the gaining and the doing, the masculine, and on the left is the feminine. I was like, oh, super interesting. So I'm talking away, and then the clients are, I'm working with a lot of clients, so I'm starting to plot more and more clients on this circle. And then they're telling me, they're saying, yeah, I want to gain, but then I get to a point and then I lose, like a cycle. I was like, oh, that's super interesting. In fact, that's just like a hamster wheel. And so I drew a hamster. I remember the first client, I said, I drew a hamster. It was a shit hamster. It looked like a turd. But I like to mess around in my sessions, have a bit of fun, right? And so now I just draw a figure because I'm not good at hamsters. But I say, this is you. You're trying to get up there, but then you just spin over or you roll back because you're exhausted. And the client went, oh my God, yeah, that's me. And so I started to work with clients on this hamster wheel concept and just kept saying hamster wheel, hamster wheel. And I remember there was a German client I worked with, and he said, oh, Rob, those arrows are pointing in the wrong direction. The hamster wheels immediately goes back in the opposite direction. And so what I was doing was I was drawing the arrow. So if you imagine a hamster wheel in front of you and that you're running on it, you're trying to go forward, but the hamster wheel goes the other way. I was drawing the arrow for what the client wanted to go. So then I started to use a color for the other direction. And yeah, it started to develop like that. And what I started to realize was that when I had certain clients, they seemed to be jammed up on one side or the other. So it depends. So you listening now, you're going to be on one side or the other, 100%. This model works for everyone that I work with, and I've worked with loads of people, and I've talked with lots of people, and I've given talks about it, and everyone's like, oh my God, that's me. So it works, it's truthful. And then it becomes a little bit more complex. My work, a lot of my work is done with feeling strong or weak in someone. So there's a code of ones and zeros, or strong and weak, that underpin everything. And this goes, I found this in my work at Chelsea when I was doing my weight shift with an athlete. I won't go into that story. You can read it in my book. And what I've come to understand, that you're either strong or weak to something. And if you're weak to something, that means that you're not strong to it, and you can't move forward in that. Or let's say you have let's say I can look at your organs. I can see which ones are weak. And so when they're weak, they're not functioning properly, and they need to be switched back on. So it's just the body is an electrical system, and then our emotions weaken that energy flow. So that's fundamentally it. Now, the interesting thing about hamster wheels is, you're either strong or weak. Let's say there's a gain or loss hamster wheel. So gain is on the right of the hamster wheel, loss is on the left. I'll be working with someone, let's say they're weak to loss. That means they hate loss. And so they do everything to go up to the gain side. So they usually workaholics, they gain huge fortunes, or do very, very, very successful in athletics or whichever endeavor. They're gainers, but they don't like loss. Now, at some point, as they're going to, throughout their life, they're going to keep flipping over to the loss, because you're not neutral. So the more you energize the right, the more you're going to get the loss. And so what I see is with clients, maybe 40 plus, maybe 50 plus, the very successful gainers, they have huge bouts of depression, loss, or they attract a situation where they lose control, or unable. They lose, they become helpless, unable, which is loss. And so they'll get cancer, which is a huge loss experience. They can't lose the cells from their body, can't clear stuff out. So they get cancer, they get neurological problems where they can't control, they have a loss of control of their body. The more through experience of working with very, very strong-minded clients, that would class themselves as mentally tough, mentally unbreakable, they're the ones that are going to get neurological problems. And I've seen it, or they get a stroke, they'll get heart attack, and then they'll be disabled, or they'll get neurological problems. And you can see that with some elite athletes who are known for being masters of their minds. They've mastered their minds. They'll get neurological problems. I'm not going to say, very well known, because it's not nice talking about people's problems. And I'm definitely not saying it's their fault. I'm saying it's because of a lack of understanding of you cannot control the mind. It's a lack of understanding of how the mind works. Okay. And unfortunately, that's one way that you're going to balance out the hamster wheel, is you attract a neurological disorder to help you to understand the loss aspect of life. Yeah. So, or you'll just lose your fortune, lose money, you'll gain and loss. So that's being weak to the loss. On the gain side, if you're weak to gain, you're going to sabotage. So you're not comfortable with gain. So you'll spend all your time trying to gain, but then you'll stop once you get a certain amount, and then you'll lose it, or you'll go back to feeling not good enough, and then you come back on and gain, or it can be very, very unusual. Like, let's say gaining control, you'll gain control by not doing. So let's say doing and not doing, which is a hamster wheel. You'll spend all your time trying to do without doing. So to gain control, it's difficult to explain without the board, but this is a podcast. I'm going to put the video up, but I don't want it to be drawing, and it's a podcast, so you can't see it. So people gain control. They do that by not doing. So they go, oh, I'm just not going to do anything. So this guy really likes me, but he's a real weirdo, and I don't want to bother him, so I just won't do anything, which is doing. It's doing by not doing. So people on the right who jammed up around gain or doing, let's say, what they do is they have the accelerator and the brake on at the same time. So they actually feel safe in not doing, in loss, or being unable. But they always want to try and gain and be in control and have more money and more freedom, but they're safe with not doing that. And that can be seen if you have a behavior of you start something and then you don't finish it, or you don't actually do it. You say, oh, I'm going to get new clients, I'm going to do this course and become this, and you just don't do it. You are weak on the right-hand side energetically. If you hate loss and you spend all your time working or gaining, trying to gain control over others, whatever, that means that loss is dangerous fundamentally. So I started to get my clients to observe their behavior. Now, I saw that some people found this very difficult, although because we're so caught in our minds that we find it difficult to observe our own behavior. It is the hardest thing. So I became aware that some people were saying, this is really, I'm finding it really difficult. And just by chance, there's no such thing as coincidence, I saw a video by Gabor Mate, just a quick one, because literally I was asking myself, okay, there's something I'm missing here with the observation. And Krishnamurti comes across as being quite a little bit harsh and a bit disconnected. He was mentally incredible, but a bit disconnected. I'm just going to put the aircon on because I'm starting to boil. When I get going with my brain, I heat up. So then I saw this Gabor Mate. Now, Gabor Mate is an 80-year-old, classed as one of the best in addiction world, therapist. And I have a lot of time for him. I've read a lot of his books. He gets results. He works with people. It's not just about educating. He actually has done the work. For me, it's always been important that I always work with people. I'm always on the front line. working, because if you're just teaching but you're not doing, and I don't mean teaching in a school, I mean if you're talking about spirituality and stuff but you're not actually getting results with people, you're more on the education side, I think you should be working with people. That's just my opinion. And so he teaches people his method, or he tries to, because he's quite intuitive. He's very, very good. And he said something that caught my attention. He said, one, trauma, everything's trauma based. And I started to see that. I was trying to look for, where are these programs coming from? And immediately when he said trauma at birth, and then I started looking into how quickly that can happen. Looking at, used to do experiments with babies that you wouldn't be able to do now, but they got a mother to look at her baby in the eyes, little baby, and the baby's completely connected with her eyes, and then she just looks away, and within 1 minute the baby is really traumatized, really struggling, and then falls into a shutdown, because physiologically the baby needs a connection with the mother, or kind of it's like death. And I saw that and I was like, boom, the light switch came on. He also said that there's this disconnect that happens at birth also creates this constant drive to get our unmet needs, or to get our needs met, the unmet needs met. And that, he said that, and I was like, and I just the week before had a call with Jeff Booth, who's the author of The Price of Tomorrow, fantastic book worth reading, entrepreneur and Bitcoiner. And he said something that caught my attention as well. He said unmet needs. You're talking about unmet needs. And so I needed that one, and then Gabor Mate's at the same time, bang, and it clicked for me. So those two ideas came together and fitted into my model. So I had previously, before I heard that, drawn a little circle down to the left of the hamster wheel. For some reason, I just drawn it. I was like, and I said to the person, I said, I don't know why I'm drawing this little circle, but there's something there. And then I carried on with the call. And then Gabor Mate and Jeff Booth's comments made me go, oh, okay, that little circle's the trauma. That's the birth. That's where the initial disconnect happens. And that explains the aberrant program that's then created before the age of 4 that we run. So there's the hamster wheel. That's the birth of the hamster wheel. And the other point that made me go, yes, this is the other part I was missing, was Gabor Mate talks about compassionate understanding. So that if you understand that the hamster wheel and the program that controls you, or that runs, or your behavior, is actually your younger self, the little baby you, or your little Rob, and you compassionately understand that at that time that program was essential for survival, and there was, the little baby was really scared and created that program. So compassionately understanding that changes the program, changes and starts to dissolve. So I went from a more intellectual observation, or kind of logical observation of your behavior, just watching it and then seeing the patterns, to then having a bit more compassion in the understanding. And that helped a lot of my clients then see their behavior, and then they could either just watch their behavior, or pick up little pick up the little Rob, and just soothe it and say it's okay. So then if you imagine like a penny farthing, there's big front wheel and little wheel. That's the model. We are born. There are other things that can come in, but the main thing is we're born disconnected parents. I haven't met anyone that hasn't been. And then that creates the programs that run us now. So I work with extremely high level, smart people who get completely caught in these hamster wheels, and then they get even more wrapped into them. It's why philosophers kill themselves, is because they're trying to understand things, but there's no answers. The truth comes from observation. There's no solution inside that centralized self mind hamster wheel. It's a trap. It's a prison. And the more you use your mind, the more you reinforce the prison. So if you imagine that hamster wheel and if you look at it and you go up to 10 o'clock at night, on a 24-hour clock, 12-hour clock, if you go to the 10 p.m. point, there I usually draw a pressure cooker symbol that looks like a penis. I can't draw it any other way. I keep doing it, and it's that joke. Some people find that funny, but I don't know. I can't seem to draw a pressure cooker top any other way. Anyway, sometimes that's it. My joke works, sometimes it doesn't. So there's this pressure cooker top there, and what I explain to people is when you're going up towards the right hand side and you're hopeful or you're on a high because you're achieving or you're gaining, but then you start to lose, it's not sufficient. Remember, the hamster wheel is you're trying to get your needs met of love, belonging, and connection up on the top right of the board, but you spin around. There's no exit. The hamster keeps running, right? So then you go over to the top and you go to the 10 p.m. point. That's where you're going to have your you're going to search for freedom, your addictions. So you're going to look for pleasure or distraction. I did a video once where I was looking at that Tate, and not Andrew Tate, Tate something, I think his name was. He's the ex-Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion, and he's in all the movies as the kind of big bearded dude. And he's talking about addiction. He used to be addicted to heroin and crack and everything. And he called it chasing freedom. And he said, people would shoot up just for 1 second of freedom. And it's freedom from what? Well, it's freedom from the hamster wheel. So it explains all the behaviors. Explain at some point you're going to go and drink, or you have very high achievers who smoke a lot of weed. Why? Well, because it gets them out of the hamster wheel, because they're not free. They're completely controlled by their behavior of achievement. They're compulsive achievers. So you get these influencers who say, oh, you've just got to be disciplined and control, and you just got to run 1,000 miles or do 100 press-ups and then you'll be free and all this shit. No, it doesn't. It's not truthful. It's not truthful. There's no freedom inside the mind. So this addiction, or I had one client who said, oh my God, mine is science fiction movies. And then another guy's like listed every single vice you could imagine up there. So we all have that. If you observe your behavior, you'll go through the cycle of, I'm hopeful, did it, and then you start to want to eat food or eat too much food or pleasurable food, start eating chocolate or drink. And then afterwards you feel the loss. So let's say gain, you come around, you feel the loss even more, and disappointment. Disappointment is a big driver of these hamster wheels. So when it comes to emotions with the hamster wheels, if the emotions you feel when you're thinking about a particular subject, like you're not getting enough clients, you can't seem to change your behavior, or you have social anxiety, whatever it is, or you're fearful or you're worried about this and that. Those fears, those worries, the anger that you experience, the disappointment, there's a hamster wheel called support and letdown. And some people spend all their time trying to support others to be valuable, to gain love, connection, belonging. But again, you can't get that. So they're just trying to be valuable to others by people pleasing, supporting everyone, but never themselves. But they just keep getting let down. I'm sure you listening, know that. Or you never like to be a letdown. So you're supportive of yourself and you're a gainer on the right. So on the right, if you're weak to support, you usually do it all the time. but you never feel supported and you get let down. If you're strong to support, then you hate to be a letdown, but you always do, or you get let down by others. So disappointment, anger, fear, anxiety, frustration, all of these emotions spit out from the hamster wheel. And all of those emotions are, in fact, your little U's emotions from when you were born, and that initial disconnect that drove you to create the programs you run now. The emotions you get around the programs are just ripples in the water from that initial rock dropping into it, which was when you were born. Yeah. So therefore, if you are experiencing an emotion around a particular behavior, or you got triggered because you were let down, or you feel like you let someone else down, or you didn't get what you wanted, or you experienced loss, the emotions you're feeling are coming from the little you. So pick up little you and say, it's okay. That's the start of dissolving these programs. And finally, how do you get off this? Yeah. So I've kind of explained in pretty good, some certain amount of detail, the concept of hamster wheels. Everyone's has different words and things. So remember, if you want to learn more about this, jump on a call with me. Biggest return on investment on anything you could ever do. I can say that hands down. The most important thing for your life is to know yourself. And this is the quickest way. You can spend 25 years trying to work it out, or I'm nearly at 30 years trying to work it out. Or you do 1 hour with me and you're going to see that you'll get more out of that 1 hour. It's just, I'm probably going to put together a 1-year program where you speak to me once a month. And that 1 year, you're going to change beyond anything you could ever imagine. So I'm super bullish on this. It's just such a simple and truthful thing. It just cuts through the bullshit like a hot knife through butter. 3 ways to get off this. I'm going to tell you them now. You can go away and try and work this out yourself also, because you are your own authority. This is, I want to give this out. I'm writing a book on this at the moment, so you can do this yourself. Is one, you can get drunk or get stoned or become spiritual and grow have a man bun and wear a wolf t-shirt, or you do porn, or you cheat on your, you cheat, you get addicted to porn, or what, like the woman did, she just binge watched science fiction movies. That is one way to chase freedom, but you always come back, and it gets less and less the time. Coffee is also one. I've given it up like a couple of months ago because it was my freedom. I would crave it because when I drank it, it was like pleasure. It was dopamine. But I realized that, and I was truthful with myself, and it was false. It was giving me a false sense of energy. It wasn't truthful. So the moment I realized that, I gave it up. I'm not telling you to do that, by the way, because some people might be extremely alarmed. They do like their coffee. So you can use the pressure cooker to try and relieve the pressure of the hamster wheel, but there's no exit. You can kill yourself. Suicide is one of the reason why people they're looking for freedom from the mind, from the hamster wheel. And unfortunately, I've known, as most people have, people who commit suicide, and yeah, it's just very sad. But that is we need to say that because that is the truth. That is why people do that. And then the third way and only way to change and free yourself is not through discipline and self-talk and this stuff. No, it's observing the hamster wheels. When you observe the hamster wheels, you start to understand them, and in understanding them, you shine light into the darkness, because they're programs that run automatically in you. They control you. When you start to see them and see them actioning, then new pathways are created in your brain. And by observing and compassionate understanding, or observing and say, there's that hamster wheel, or picking up little Rob, or, picking your little self up and saying it's okay, that changes and dissolves the program that's been running your whole life. And I've got clients who are 80 who are doing this. I have got clients who are 20. So it's the same. It happens quickly. And then you start to see there are more hamster wheels, different types of hamster wheels, and they start to dissolve. Then you're free. Now, what does the freedom look like? What are we talking about? It's like a new window opens. It's like, let's say I was weak to doing. So non-doing was safe for me. And I started to see this behavior that was imprisoning me. Like, I didn't want to do anything because I felt unsafe, or it was safer just to stay and do nothing and stick to my life that I knew. But it was making me feel like I was not living. And I started to watch this behavior. I didn't try and do anything more. I didn't, because I've done that my whole life and it never worked. And I just observed, and then it dissolved, and I got this shift in me, and then I just started to do things. But it wasn't like I suddenly became compulsive in doing. I just did them when I needed to, and then I didn't when I didn't need to. So it was a real subtle shift, but there's no more anxiety around doing or not doing. One in particular that I did recently was, I think it was like 3 weeks ago, I jumped on a call with my assistant, Floche, and I did a session on her around, I wanted to have more new clients. I wanted to do more, connect outwards more, connect with my clients, connect with more people. So I've been working on this for a number of years now, and now I'm writing a book because I'm going to do that. I'm comfortable with doing that. Before I wouldn't. I've spent a lot of my life and my career just not doing, just coasting along, and whatever happens, happens. So now I'm much more thinking and planning. But I spend most of the time with my kids. I have a wonderful life. I'm not working all the time. I really have the most wonderful life, and it comes from observing. So just coming back to the call with Forte, we worked on her around connecting with people. It was around value, being valuable, or other people's value. And the hamster wheel was seen, and she changed instantly. And we, within a couple of days, I got loads of new clients, and now she's completely changed, and we're connecting, lots more people coming in, lots more packages being bought and stuff. So in terms of the value of that on the business, you can see it immediately. It's like a green candle, boom, like suddenly something's changed in the business. So in terms of these hamster wheels changing things, when it comes to business, it's all to do with, it's an internal game. Marketing for your business, internal game. Yes, there is marketing to be done externally, but it's your hamster wheels create your reality. If you're in your relationship and you're not feeling happy or fulfilled, it's inside of you. It's not to do with the other person. If it's your health, it's internal. Everything in your life is a projection of your hamster wheels. You change the hamster wheels, your life outside of you completely changes. Remember, the hamster wheels, you're glitched up on one side of the other or the other. It literally works like a magnet. This is the real law of attraction. You get these people say, just focus on gaining. No, you're going to attract the opposite as well. It's much more subtle than that. These work like magnets. You always attract the same people, the same life events based on your hamster wheels. And it's dangerous, because the more you try and gain because you don't want to lose, you're going to lose. The more you run away from loss, you're still you get what you run away from. If you're sabotage, if you're weak to the gain, you're going to keep sabotaging yourself and you'll never gain love, connection, belonging, freedom, everything you're trying to gain, you don't want. Unconsciously, people who are weak to gain want to lose because that is safe. So you're either jammed up on the right, on the left. You listening, whoever you are, you're either jammed up on the left or the right. You just plot it out and you'll see. So know that these act like magnets. There's nothing you can do. And if you're extremely logical, you're gonna immediately go, yeah, but how do I gain control of this? But that's stepping into the centralized system. As Jeff Booth says, you can't change system from within the system that created it. So you have to, that's why I wrote Decentralizing the Mind, although I don't think it's a good, no one gets that. So I won't be really using that anymore. But it's that idea of decentralizing and creating a new system by observing without doing. It seems like you're not doing everything. You are doing everything. Everyone who I work with on this changes. It's extraordinary. If you have an illness, something's going wrong with your body, it's coming from this, or it's something to do with this. Yes, there might be things going on. There might be something else coming from outside of you, like from your spirit, that needs to be resolved, but that can be done quite quickly. The main thing is the hamster wheel. Most of the cancer patients I work with, they're strong to gaining, and they don't like loss or being unable or helpless. They're like the type A, personalities, and they hate to feel unable. Guess what? Life goes, oh yeah, you hate that? There you go. It's just cause and effect. So this is extremely important if you want to change. If you're going struggling, this is where you need to go. In fact, everyone needs to do this. I do it for myself, and I do it for my wife. I do it for my children because I've already conditioned them. My daughter's 7. My 3-year-old Bo, she's 3, and I know my conditioning's already gone into them just when they were born. Through they observe me, and they take on everything that I do. However, now I can change it. Now I can. I've been doing this for 3 years now. This hamster wheel work, and it's absolutely incredible, and it happens very quickly. I have a client the other day who said to me, we did a session on her and her child, and after that session, their relationship, she's just watched him flourish. She said, flourish in front of my eyes. He comes over to me. He's so much more connected and loving and happy. And she says, I can't thank you enough, just in one session. So business changes, health changes, anxiety changes, sleep changes. So, and I'm not telling you this to come and work with me. I'm telling you this is the truth. There are these hamster wheels, they control you. You see them, they'll dissolve. That's it. So go. What I would love you to do, and you do whatever you want. It's a free world, and it's all about freedom, right? You're your own authority. But there's this truth that there's software that runs from your operating system that you aren't aware of. You need to see it to dissolve it. Otherwise, you'll never be free. And trying to be free by getting away or fighting limitation and enslavement is not freedom. The opposite of enslavement is not freedom. Freedom only comes from when there's no more conditioning and software running in our minds. And that needs to be what I just said there. That's quite deep. You have to observe that. All right. So I hope you found that interesting. I really find it interesting. I hope you do. These hamster wheels are, it's just so cool. And I find it fascinating. You'll start to see everyone's hamster wheel. If you want to see a documentary about hamster wheel, watch David Beckham's documentary on Netflix. He shows clear hamster wheel of gain and loss. Nothing was ever good enough for his father, and therefore nothing's ever good enough for him. And he has a OCD that helps to free him from his mind. That's another way. Again, when I say about like someone who's well known and you want to see that, it's no way in judgmental. We all have this. I have everything inside of me that I see out there that's ugly, greed, all the ugliness of humanity is within me, and I take full responsibility. So when I say go look at David Beckham, I'm not mocking him at all. He comes across as a wonderful human being, and we're all wonderful human beings, just with a lot of trauma. You want to see another one? It's Sylvester Slide, the documentary on Netflix. He also talks about he kind of was almost describing the hamster wheel. And so I love spending my time watching documentaries and looking for behaviors, but I'm just a freak. And I don't know why I find it so fascinating, but obviously that's why I'm on the planet. It was to free myself fundamentally, and to help other people up the ladder of life, and help children, which is my main focus these days. All right, thanks so much. If you'd like, leave a comment under the podcast. I do see them. I can't reply back to them, so apologies for that. I do have, if you want to connect with me, I'm on www.school.com/masterless meditation. It's a site where I post things that I'm doing. I do webinars twice a week. If you want to sign up for the webinars, it's a monthly fee. It's not too much, but you can connect with me there and speak to me. I'm also on Twitter at Rob Brinded. I'm on Nostra as well, if you look for Rob Brinded as well, and also Instagram. So I'm going to keep you up to date with the book. I'm having a call with my editor this afternoon before I start that big challenge, but I'm feeling comfortable about doing the book as I've been observing it, and now I'm able to do that. So thanks so much for your time. Big hugs, and connect with you somewhere on the web. Cheers.